Welcome back to the aisle. I am Trista and I'm today's host. Today we're going to be talking about the transition between being a girlfriend, a fiance, and then a wife. I think a lot of people don't talk about this, and I think it's a pretty important topic to discuss because there's a lot that happens, a lot more change that happens in life more than just a relationship status. There's actually just a lot of life expectations, life focuses, and big shifts that do come across that deserve attention and deserve conversation. So, before we get into all of that great stuff and the advice that I have for graceful transitions and things that I think should be different in a female's life when they're going through these transitions, we're going to get into some real life updates. So, first and foremost, I have been talking about my journey recovering from lipo a couple weeks ago. Definitely a bigger journey than what I had expected to have happen, but we are moving and grooving. We're on 2 weeks. On this coming week is going to be 2 weeks. And I think things are going great. I think the biggest thing that I didn't realize was how much my actual diet needed to change throughout this. I don't feel like I'm a terrible eater in life in general, but I do love to snack. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that sodium and carbs make you swell up through this healing process like ridiculously. And so those are just things that are no longer allowed in my diet, which will also help just overall health in general. So definitely not mad at that at all. Let's see, what else has been going on? We've been super focused on just my goals in life. And I think that a lot of this downtime from recovering from surgery has actually allowed like some idle time in my brain to like focus on goals and journey and how my actions are going to pile up to complete the goals that I've been setting, whether it's fitness goals, physical, family goals, work goals, whatever it may be. It's just been a lot easier to do. You know what? I was just thinking her iPad noise is probably in the background.
Okay. Hey, babies.
That's okay.
Well, we can use the background stuff that I got.
Yeah.
And you can just.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Come on, let's go.
I was just thinking about that right now.
I thought about it, but you didn't say anything. I was like,
I know.
She's probably fine.
I'm like, oh crap, her iPad. Okay, bye, cutie. Okay. All right. So what? Yeah, that's kind of what's been going on just in life in general. On for my own personal life history. As far as BTS, everything is going really good. We are still in the midst of a lot of new bride inquiries. I've talked a lot about what engagement season is, and that's the point in time between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day that covers pretty much all of the big holidays that typically people get engaged in. So this time in wedding world, we call it engagement season, and that's when a lot of new brides are coming in. They're ready to hit the ground running on wedding planning. And so we're still just right in the midst of all of that. We have a couple of videos from our last two Cabo weddings that are still going viral on TikTok and on Instagram, and which is amazing. I absolutely love checking the comments and everything that people are saying and kind of sharing from those weddings because they were truly just absolutely gorgeous. And because those have gone so viral, we've gotten so many more inquiries for destination weddings in, which is great. Definitely very excited about all of that. I want to kind of fill you guys in on a little bit, like, because a lot of things that are coming up in my consultations is people are still under the impression that destination weddings are much less expensive than local weddings. And the truth of the matter is it's not the case. Destination weddings are quite expensive. But what does change is sometimes you'll have a lower guest count, which does help with the overall like food and beverage cost and like the number of tables and things like that. But with the way that we do destination weddings, everything is so customized and so detail oriented that the pricing is going to be very similar, whether you are in another country or you are local in America. There are destination wedding packages that some venues offer, which is like basically it's like a package that you purchase And that package will come with like a ceremony site, a champagne toast, a cake, a photographer for 4 hours, and a musician, and like 6 centerpieces. So it like kind of bundles everything together. And so it allows people to purchase this package and then put it into play, and like that's their wedding. And that does save some money. It's far different than the experience that we go through with our couples. But it is a way for people to benefit from destination weddings. So if that is something that you're looking for, if definitely destination wedding is something you want to do to save the money, then you want to look into a destination wedding package with like an all-inclusive resort or something like that. I say this, and I think it's important to say on this podcast because it's coming up a lot in my consultations. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, I want 40 people at my wedding and I have $15,000 to spend. And it's like, okay, that's far different than how weddings work with us, but there is a way to make it happen. And I think it's just important to educate people on this because it's defeating when you're starting to plan a wedding and you don't know what to do and you don't know what the direction is. And like you're seeing things online, you're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. But then you learn that it's very, very expensive. Like all this stuff is so expensive. So I just want to spread the word that there is, there are possibilities. It's again, different than what our weddings are, but there are things that are available for this. So definitely look into that. Okay. And then let's get into the topic of this week's podcast. Going from girlfriend to fiance to wife. Let's get into all the details on how this transition happens and how to do this with grace. This season isn't just about planning a wedding. So getting engaged isn't just about like, okay, all these wedding details and everything else. It's about evolving into somebody's life partner, a decision maker, a nurturer, a support system. It's transitioning into maybe thinking about being a mother. Kids aren't for everybody, so I don't want to come on here and preach like, oh, become a wife and become a mom. It's 2026, everybody is different, but these are possibilities. Like these are things that you want to start talking about. It's not just one day. So starting off, you go from like this romantic thinking to like long-term thinking. And if that hasn't started clinking like in your mind, definitely start to turn those gears because that's what's needed for you in this next season of life. So girlfriend mode often lives present. Like, hey babe, what are we doing this weekend? Like, what's going on here? Fiance and wife mode require like future focused thinking. So that doesn't necessarily mean like the what are we doing this weekend goes out the window. That's not the case. But it's also, what are we planning for? What are we saving for? What are our goals for this next year and this next 5 years? It's long-term thinking and it's long-term changes in the way that you're seeing things. So decisions start to be considered in years and not weekends. The fun, flirty you, again, will still be there, but there also needs to be more. We need to start thinking about like your health as you get older, cooking, new recipes. Like it's great to like order out, and we live in a society right now where it's like everything is fast, everything is attainable, everything is easily delivered. And that's great, but like also when you're starting a family, you're going to want to nurture your family. You're going to want to, cook soup when it's raining out or when your kids are sick or when your husband is sick. You're going to want to have family recipes that are passed down, things that are like your staple dishes. You're going to want to start thinking about like long-term career goals. And maybe you already have started thinking about that, and that's great. But now how do those career goals pair with your partner's career goals? What does savings look like? What does investing look like? What do trips look like? How do you guys spend your time if you're both working career people? When do you take off of work? When does this all happen? How do you spend the holidays now together? You're no longer the kids of the family. You all have started your own families. And so those are just things that need to be talked about. If you guys don't own a home already, talking about owning a home. What does that look like? Who's sacrificing where they live? What changes are going to be made there? Just different focuses in life come across when you are switching from girlfriend mode to fiance to wifey. Um, Conversations move from what do we want right now, like what sounds good now, to what are we building and working towards. What is that, what is the 5-year plan? So in 5 years from now, we want to have investments here, and we want to do career shifts here, and we want to have our first child, or whatever that looks like. It's all about planning now, and not just, again, planning for the weekend. It's planning for these big heavy life changes. You want to start weighing consequences for different decisions that are made. You can no longer just fly by the seat of your pants because there's a whole other person that you're considering. Again, finances, family dynamics, shared goals, they're all discussions that need to be had. Practice pausing before reacting. So this is a big thing as well. When you're just you, it's easy to be like, okay, I don't like this, I'm moving on here. Like, oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing that. When you are building a life together with somebody, there's no longer quick reactions. It's pause, it's think, it's plan things out, it's let's talk about this and let's figure out what these next steps are. So conversations are definitely going to start getting a lot heavier, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. It's nothing to be scared of. It's something to prepare for. Before you do anything at all, you have to stop again and pause and think about, does this support the life that I am looking for? If you have a wild bestie from college and happy hours turn into all night benders, you maybe want to kind of change those habits around a little bit, because you're no longer just you as a single entity. You are now part of a couple and a pair, and things like that kind of shift and change a little bit. You want to really think about, again, pausing and think about your focus. Like, what is your focus? If, again, you have a crazy best friend from college and her wild decisions sometimes consume your life, you probably need a little bit of distance and boundaries in that area, because you don't have as much time to pour into that glass, because you now have your family and your future that you're pouring into. You want to learn to have these conversations and have these thoughts without fear. A lot of times when I'm talking to my girls and they're going through these life transitions, they're like, I don't want to let these things go, or I'm not ready to. But like, the thing of it is that you'd rather let it end with a plan than have it end in like disaster. So you, at any point in time in your life, when things are carefree and fun and frivolous and just kind of like part of like a younger mindset, it's going to come to an end sooner or later. But it's better to prepare, notice, and think about these things than it is to end up like wildly disappointing your significant other, or getting yourself into a situation where it's like, okay, now I'm having relationship problems because things aren't working out as much. So you want to, again, not function out of fear, but just function out of planning and work towards being in a really safe space. Becoming a wife is becoming a future matriarch in a family. It's becoming maybe a future mother. It's becoming a future foundation for things. And it's a really, really big role to be transitioning to. So take it seriously, put time into it. Understand that you're going from independent to interdependent. And it doesn't mean you're codependent or that your entire life has to revolve around your significant other. You can still have that independence, but it's independence in a partnership, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like this big balancing act that you really have to learn to master. You're no longer making decisions just for yourself. So there's no longer like, oh, I'm going to go on this girls trip this weekend. Like, yes, that's fine. Go on the girls trips. But like, it's not just about packing your suitcase and going. It's about talking to your significant other about this. Are there things around the house that need to be done? Are there responsibilities that you have that with your absence are going to affect this other person? Are there different behaviors or history behind what happens when you're out with these friends? If so, these are all things that need to be addressed and talked about, because it's important. And again, changing and going into this different part of life becomes with different responsibilities, and they're good responsibilities. Again, I can't stress it enough. They're really good. You want to learn that compromise is a skill to master. Compromise is not sacrifice and losing out. It's the art and the ability to make sure that you have what you need to be happy, but you also are moving in a way to make this other person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with really happy as well. And I think that there's a lot of beauty in understanding that it's no longer just being selfish and me focused, it's us focused, and it's how are we going to move together. And I can't stress enough how many times I see in our brides when they're first starting their wedding planning, they're like, oh, I don't care what he thinks, like I just want this. And it's like, no, love, like you need to care what he thinks. It's important. And a lot of times our grooms truly don't have an opinion, and that's okay. But like if they do, then what's the plan? Because it really is truly about entering into a new life together. You learn that when you are going through life with another person, you're not just leading. You maybe are leading sometimes, but you're also learning how to take a step back and let somebody else lead in other times. And I'm not the type of person that believes that like a man rules the household. I believe that a couple rules the household, and it's a tango. So it's like a little bit forward, a little bit back, like sometimes you are going to take the reins, and maybe there are certain things that a lot about that you want to make sure are coming across effectively. And then there's also times when you're going to have to take a little bit of a step back and let your partner lead, and let him or her be the one that's like really kind of taking you on this journey or this route. That's something that's always been really difficult for me to master, but it's something that I really enjoy trying to figure out, because it's important. It's important to be soft, and it's important to allow your partner to lead at times. It can be really nice to really develop that, because it's kind of exhausting to lead all the time, to be honest. So it's good to be able to digress. So in speaking of these kind of points, we want to talk about just communicating thoroughly, having conversations about everything and anything. I really feel like when you're going through these transitions and really kind of setting the focus, it's a point in time in life to where you need to over communicate. Like there's not enough conversations that can happen to be able to solve and fix everything. You can't assume. So again, if there's a girls trip coming up, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. Is there anything you're worried about? Is there anything that I need to make sure that I'm doing to make you feel comfortable and secure? It's just the over communicating throughout the process. Respecting differences on how each of you guys process things is really important, and learning your partner, like, oh, he's just going through this right now because da. And how do I help this? Or how do I give this space? Instead of like, it's not going the way that I want it to. It's just, those are just the kind of things that you want to really kind of understand. You also want to really get into your head that a relationship is a 50-50 deal, but sometimes the 50-50 deal looks different. Like sometimes it looks like your partner giving 80 and maybe you're having a tough time and you're giving 20, or vice versa. Or there's certain times when you're giving 90% and he's giving 10. And again, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong or bad. It means that both people need to be active and engaged, and sometimes those scales aren't going to be even. So it's unfair to say like, oh, well, I'm pulling all the weight. Like, well, sometimes your partner pulls all the weight, and those are okay times and things to do. You want to have like wife level conversations. It's again no longer about a happy hour turning into an all night bender. Like that's fun, yes, of course, but like it's not responsible, and it's not what like a wife does. Or maybe it is. Don't be offended if I'm saying this and this is something that you do. Like, I'm just speaking in general and giving my own opinions for things. So you do want to understand the emotional regulation and avoid avoidance. You want to make sure that you are engaged, like I had talked about. So if conflict arises, how do you push through? If things are different, how do you figure out that good balance and operating on a wife type level? You know, there's a reason why that relationship status changes and you are called a girlfriend and then you're called a fiance and then you're called a wife. It's different hats that you're wearing and you're expected to operate on different levels. Let's see here. Let's talk about planning a wedding, but also planning a life. So a lot of what we do is highly focused on the details of the wedding. We do have the privilege to get to know our brides in this very vulnerable time. So we do hear a lot about like the life changes as well and the things that are going to be different, and like moving in together if you're not already living together, or moving after. Maybe you're moving away, maybe there's a job change. Like there's a lot of things that kind of go on. So this wedding planning isn't just for this one event, it's for this entire new lifestyle. Things that are going to change during this is that you want to stop obsessing over optics and start focusing on foundation. So this doesn't necessarily mean what does this wedding day look like or how is this wedding planning journey. You're also thinking about like what is a foundation of a life looking like. Do you guys have couples that you look up to? Do you have inspiration? Do you have mentors in the sense of like couples? You know, people have mentors in their work and their professional careers, but also it's important to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Some people are very blessed to see that from their parents, and then some of us are not, and we have to look for these examples in different places. So whether that's in your workplace, whether that's in your church, whether that's in your friend group, whether it's somebody online, real or fake, I don't know, but what is this example of what a relationship looks like? Start to study it and start to understand and figure out the differences in these levels of your relationship. You want to talk about things like your plan for faith, traditions. Gosh, there's just so much. Like a faith-based relationship is important if your faiths are different. Just understanding each other is so important because these are big foundations that keep couples together when times get really hard. And you don't quite know what those hard times are going to be until life is lifing, you know, and it's important to understand what that central ground is and where you do come back to in order to start building up confidence if life is knocking you down. Let's see here. So throughout dating, maybe there's not so much of a focus on things like religion or investments or career goals. But I would highly suggest if this is somebody you're considering spending the rest of your life with, you start having those conversations. And then when you are engaged, you start really enacting some of those things so that you are on the same page and you do slide into a life together that's easy and smooth. You don't want to start having these conversations after wedding. You know, people say that the first 5 years of marriage are really hard, and I do believe that, but the first 5 years of dating are hard too. So like have the conversations early and make sure that you guys are building a life together that is really great. I've kind of touched on finances a little bit. A big thing to really think about and very grown-up topics to think about is, are you guys sharing a bank account? Are your finances separate? Is one person covering more bills than the other? What are you responsible for? What are your investments looking like? What does career look like? Is wife going to stop working after marriage? Is she going to stop working after kids? Like, what are the expectations? Things a lot of times in life don't go as planned, but I think it's important to have goals that are aligned with each other. So that way you are thinking about these things, and going into a life together is, again, much smoother when you've already had these and you have a plan in place. You want to just make sure you're carving out time to constantly touch base about money or finances, roles in the household and the marriage, boundaries with people on the outside, values within. You want to just make sure that these are things that you're constantly talking about, because without them, you lose touch of what's going on. And again, this entire podcast is about how you change as a woman from being a girlfriend to a fiance to being a wife. And if you're doing your part and you're constantly talking to your partner about doing his or her part, that's very important because it's a big key to success. I don't think that much can go wrong if you guys are constantly evolving and acting like husband and wife and head of household and support systems for each other. If those things are in place, there's not a lot that can really kind of get murky after those things are determined. You want to remember during your wedding planning process that the goal, of course, is to have this perfect wedding and this day that's going to live in your memories forever and ever, but also that that is the entry and the gateway into a very healthy marriage. So this wedding planning journey, again, is about planning a wedding and making sure that all these details go just as you want them to, but also really focusing on what does your life look like afterwards? How does this change as you become the wife and the female head of your household? Okay, so now that we've gone through all of that, let's talk about what are the changes initially after wedding day. Becoming a wife should allow you to expand as a person, not shrink. So again, I don't want this to sound like you have to give up this old you and now just become this, this wife. It's not. It's about growing and elevation. It's not about giving up and losing out. So really keep that mindset in place. Your identity evolves, it doesn't disappear. So it's important that you don't lose yourself in supporting your husband or your partner, but that you as a person become better because you are a great support for your spouse. You have to balance the we in everything without losing who you are. So we are going to be doing this, but I am still very focused on this. Again, it's about the evolution of you as a woman, not losing out on things. Now, there are some things that may change and that you may have to close the door on. And again, the wild party girl that's your bestie from college, there may be some boundaries that are established with this person. And if she's a good, decent person and maybe just on a different track of life, she's going to respect that. She's going to change and she's going to know that, again, your happy hours cannot no longer turn into all night vendors. It's just not okay and it's not acceptable. You want to carry yourself as a wife. You want to put that crown on and hold your head really high. You are no longer the girlfriend. You're no longer somebody else's daughter. You're no longer somebody's sister, somebody's friend. You're all of these things, but you're not those individual compartments, if that makes sense. So when you're looking at yourself as your mother's daughter, yes, you're your mother's daughter, but you're also a wife now. So you are both encompassing. It's not just one or the other. It's not just like, oh, I'm so-and-so's girlfriend, like we're dating, it's cool. It's like, no, I'm his wife and I'm going to uphold my standards and my boundaries and everything to this level. You want to make sure that you are constantly focused on changing for the better and evolving and putting your focus to the best, most positive, healthy aspects of life, and understand that you're no longer a party girl, but life is still fun. Like it's just a good balance between everything. Saturday night plans are important, but that's not main focus in life. And sometimes if you can't make it, that's okay because you have other things going on. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to understand that you're not losing anything. You're still this same person, but you've just evolved. And now there's just more substance and more things to you. So again, it's changing and evolving, not losing or diminishing. You want to make sure that you protect your passions and your friendships and you still have time to pour into that, but you want to let go of things and people that no longer serve the goals and the overall lifestyle that you are now transitioning into. personal growth is always important still. So as you are figuring out this growth into being a wife, you also are figuring out like you're still you and making sure that there's still change and evolution just as you as a person, like in career wise or any other kind of situation. It's you are still important as well. You're just now operating and making room for you to be a partner in everything. Fulfillment in these roles is always going to come from mastering the balance of things. And with new focuses, you're gonna acquire new tastes and new skills and new hobbies. So it is really kind of neat to think about like your super wild Saturday nights are now going to transition into, 7 a.m. Sunday morning Pilates classes. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a beautiful transition, but it's just a shift in what is going on in your life and how things do change. Engagement can bring a lot of opinions and a lot of judgments from outside circles. So the wild single friends that are still going super strong on the same kind of shenanigans that you've always done, some of them may be judgy. They may have a lot to say. Oh, she's changed. Oh, she's this. She only cares about her man or this and that. That's okay. Like, it's okay to only care about your man. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Not to only care, but for that to shift into being a really heavy focus of yours. It's a positive thing. It's growth and it's healthy. When you do if you do encounter those kind of negative like naysayers, you want to make sure that you are putting boundaries up, addressing those kind of things. You don't want to be peer pressured to be a bad person. You don't want to be having like a negative voice in your ear. It's just maybe it's time to outgrow that person. Your decisions to please a lot of other people are going to probably have to stop, and some people may not like that, and that's okay. But it's just preparing and getting ready for that in your life. You want to make sure that you are trusting your instincts and your decision-making abilities as a partner. So again, not allowing a happy hour to turn into all night long, trusting your instincts, like, all right, okay, it's time for me to get home now. Like, I need to go make dinner. I need to go, prepare for a big presentation for tomorrow's at work or, wherever it might be. But just making sure that your instincts for your decisions are always focused in a very positive kind of way. And just avoid over explaining your relationship and these positive shifts to people that don't get it and don't understand. I've seen a lot of times with our brides, they have like a troublemaker bridesmaid that's like, this is stupid and this and this. And it's funny because it can go one of two ways. That person can very soon end up being engaged and then end up kind of following right in your footsteps, or that person maybe breaks away and kind of does their own thing. But it's just never a good idea to sacrifice what you have going on in your relationship or even allow anybody to kind of throw you off with this. So again, just making sure that you're leading with what works for us, meaning you and your partner. Setting boundaries, closing doors on things that no longer serve your present and future self, and making decisions that just really unite as a couple. And don't feel guilty about it. Understand that it's okay to change. And oftentimes the people that are in your life that you do need to kind of separate from a little bit, they may not be around anyways. They may not have a lot of longevity to them anyways. So in closing to all of this, the transition to becoming a perfect wife, again, isn't about loss or losing out. It's just about evolving. It's becoming grounded. It's becoming intentional as a partner. You want to give yourself grace. You want to, do a lot of self check-ins. If things seem a little scary or uncertain, it's good to have that person that's maybe a little bit older than you, or maybe been in a relationship longer than you, that you turn to for advice. Just having that positive ear. Growth takes practice. It's not something that happens overnight. And this season of transition and shaping your life into these next levels is extremely important. So keep in mind that as a fiance, again, your relationship status didn't just change, your lifestyle is evolving. And planning your wedding is extremely important, but also preparing and planning for your future life is even more important. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for walking down the aisle with us. Make sure you join us every Tuesday as we release a new episode and talk about all things weddings. If you want to hear more, turn into Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. We're on all platforms. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating and a positive review. It helps us get these episodes into circulation so much more. And I just feel like we have a wealth of knowledge to share. So if you could help us out with that, that would be great. And that's all we've got for today. Thanks so much.